Welcome to the fourth Breachside Chat here for the Through the Breach role-playing game. I'm your host, Mack Martin. I am the lead designer here in charge of Through the Breach, and we're going to have a good time. This one might be a little shorter than normal because we just haven't had as big a gap of time between now and the last show, so we don't have as many questions, but we've got some people here in chat who are going to ask me questions after I go through all of the questions you've asked here in the comments section. As a side note, I was lucky enough to actually notice that some of you posted a question or two in the updates comment section. In the future, I might not notice those, so if you've got a question, please feel free to ask them in the comment section, the main comment section, with the tagline at Breachside Chat or at Breachside. That way, when I scan through it, my eyes will pick it up. But I will start today with the two questions that were asked at the on the on the updates, because we did have two there and I did notice them, so I don't want to leave anyone out if I can avoid it. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to answer these questions, then I'm going to talk a little bit about the magic system that we have in the works here, and then after that I will go ahead and answer questions from people in chat. As another side note, so I keep getting derailed here, this one might be a little shorter, but also it won't be up on YouTube until probably after the Christmas break, which may not be until early January. We take next week off. I'll be posting updates from home, and I'll make sure to mention that, in one of the updates that this happened and that it's on Ustream, but it won't be on YouTube for a little while. That's just everyone's out of the office, sorry. So I'll make sure to mention that to everyone who isn't able to watch it on Ustream. All right, so first question comes from Peter Holland. He asks, if the advanced pursuits aren't going in unless we reach a particular level of funding, what is the draw of the game? Surely you can see players will want to be able to move toward death marshals or even rezzards. If that isn't going to be in there, then this game is realistically incomplete. What enticements will it have if you don't reach that? Well, first of all, I think we're going to reach that. I don't think that'll be a problem. Today we announced the Santana. If we get 500 or more people pledging at the 225 gamer room level, we'll be throwing in a wow, the baby keeps just will not quit coughing in here, will she? If we get more than 500 people donating or pledging at the 225 gamers room level, we are going to include Santana in all of those pledge level, in that pledge level. They're distracting, aren't they? They just keep muttering. I told them I was going to do this thing. Are we done here? Are we done? I'm recording. You know that, right? All of this is going right into the recording. I hope you didn't say anything proprietary.
A good caster wouldn't even blink when there's distractions.
I'm not a good caster. I mean, I've just totally derailed everything, and I'm still recording, and I don't plan to record over it. I'm terrible at this. Why does everyone expect me to be a professional newsman?
Pretty much my job to make your life harder, isn't it?
I've noticed that with deadlines and that kind of stuff. Hi, guys. All right, so my answer to your question, Peter, is that hopefully we will be hitting that level. I fully expect we will, especially with the Santana. However, in the unfortunate circumstance that we don't, I'm not going to ignore those things. They're still going to be going in as part of expansions, that sort of thing, and those should be coming fairly quickly. Basically, I look at becoming a Rezzer or a Death Marshal as the early mid-game. So when you look at the cycle of a character over the course of a role-playing game, you can break that into three things: early game, mid-game, and late game. 4th edition D&D does this very well with their heroic, paragon, and epic scale, and I kind of see it as the same way. So if I don't get the pages to do it, then it'll simply be the beginning of that second tier of play. If I do get the space to put it in there, then I'll be including that second tier of play in the core experience, and then continuing that second tier of play in the expansions, as well as stuff for new games and older games. My goal, my hope, is to get all of that kind of tier 2, that paragon scale, for lack of a better term, into the core books, at least so that players have the beginnings of that start. If I fail to do that, it's merely because we don't have the page count, and I want to make sure that we get everything dealt with in as linear a fashion as possible, so that games that start have everything they need at the start, and very quickly I will be releasing things for that. It'll be bumped up to happen even faster than normal. that might mean I start doing some web releases or some other things. But my goal, and I fully expect to see that happen, is to get those things into the core book. So I wouldn't be too concerned that it won't make it in there, but in the unfortunate event that it doesn't, it will be something I address extremely quickly. Because I agree that that really is a big part of the game is that a lot of players will see through the breach and want to play a death marshal or that sort of thing. So I've definitely thought about that, and I understand the concern, but I'm not terrified that it's going to be a problem. Kitsune City asks, hi there, I'm curious as to how well Through the Breach's card-based system is going to translate to be playing online. That's an excellent question, and I've been looking into some of the possible answers. Some of you may notice that today, actually, we released the Vassal system for Malifaux, the skirmish game. So that's something that we as a company kind of put out there, version 1, to kind of support. I forget, who worked on that? Was that Ratty?
Yeah, it was Alex.
Alex put a lot of work into making that very, very cool, and it's something not a lot of game companies do.
And I think
is support that online play.
There's a volunteer who helped him too. I forget.
Okay, I want to make sure credit goes credit to Alex and a volunteer, but we don't have the. We're over. He worked with the guys in Georgia, and we're here in California. Sorry, I don't have that info. I'm just the role playing guy. Yeah. But not a lot of game companies do that. We feel it's far more important that you're playing our game. And we want you to be excited to play, and we want to support online play as much as possible. When it comes to the card system, that will pose some difficulties, and we are looking into some possible solutions. I've been playing a lot around with, I've been goofing off with Roll20 to see what I can figure out, as well as simply Google+. That's actually been something I've been doing this week, just to see what needs to happen and see what what may already be there. And I'm just getting a feel for it, so I don't know what we're going to be able to do, but it's certainly something we're aware of and looking into. I hope that's a good answer. All right, so now it's time to hop over to the comments section and answer those questions. Pride365. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to mispronounce everyone's name. Pride365 asks, who's going to nail all 500 or more of the Wicked dolls? Whew. I don't know. I'm afraid that's going to end up being me. In which case, one of you will get a doll named Baron von Rumplebutt. If I have to name them. Actually, I'm going to work hard to make sure that one of you out there gets a doll named Baron von Rumplebutt. Pride also asks, oh no, that's to someone else. Scrolling down, being a terrible webcaster. Breachside chat, Darren Bergeon asks, in an earlier chat I heard you mention different varieties of soul stones. Can you elaborate? AG, will there be suit specific, different colors, shapes, sizes, varying power levels, differing recharge methods, and will using different types change the way spells, abilities, and cool gear works? You kind of just listed all the things I had in mind. Yes. That's kind of the idea, is we want to take soul stones away from being this kind of set in stone, they do this one thing, they're kind of magically charged with energy, and give every soul stone a lot more flavor. To the point where hopefully in your game, when player characters get a soul stone, when a fated character has a soul stone in hand, it has a little bit of flair to it. So maybe it's just a soul stone, but the energy in it is weird, or it's one that's really easy to recharge compared to others. It kind of recharges on its own, or it's really hard to recharge, but it's more powerful. Maybe it's an odd color. Maybe it only works when you're doing something with a certain suit because it's been damaged. All kinds of different ways to do it. We want to make soul stones. While in the skirmish game, they're kind of the money of the game. They're the internal resource of the game. In the Malifaux role-playing game, Through the Breach, we really want to make soul stones very characterful. Kind of expand on that. That'll be one of the defining differences between the two games. So yes, your answer to your question is yes. All of those things are ways you can define soul stones, and it's my plan to give players a lot of options for ways in which they can define them. Roos Wibwag asks, McCam, really? You're not going to trick me into going back into the fifth dimension, Kal-El. I don't have to say my name backwards anymore. Not since the Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now I have to like paint my face blue or whatever. It depends on when I appear. You know, everyone get that was a Mixelplick Star Wars reference or Star Wars Superman reference? No, nobody, just me. Huge Superman nerd over here. Anybody in the room get no? Okay. Now I feel like a dork. Mac, how much information of the world of Malifaux will be given? Will it be just the Malifaux city and its outskirts, the areas that have been explored, or if we hit the 250K to unlock the Fate Masters / Mistress, I like Fate Mistress, Almanac, Secrets of Malifaux, will that have information of the full world? In brief, I would be expecting you to release more detailed information in future supplements. We certainly want to save stuff for future supplements, and it's not really about like we have all this stuff and we're going to save them for future supplements. Much of it hasn't even been written or thought of. We want to save things for creative and awesome writers and designers who come into the projects later to have room to expand and be creative. As well, we do want space for Fate Masters and Fate Mistresses to be creative. That being said, I plan, and it's my hope, given enough pages, to really delve into the city of Malifaux itself, get into a lot of the districts and how they feel, what kind of people live there, maybe even talk about some of the gangs of Malifaux, all kinds of fun stuff that we can put into there. As well, a lot more information on Earthside, just so that players have a good view of who their people are and what kind of a place they come from. I just almost forgot, guys. Today, well, before I leave, I have to update a picture, don't I? Okay, it's time to update a picture today. You'll see. But yeah, hopefully we'll be able to really explore a lot of Malifaux. The more pages I get, the more we're going to explore. But the more I explore, the more space we're actually going to open up. So, I mean, the world of Malifaux is a big place. We might open up some really interesting stuff that happens over the horizon, over the mountains, through the desert, through the bayou. A lot of really cool options for new locations that can open up and that sort of thing. So the more we add, the more space there will be to add in the future and all kinds of good stuff. So it's expect to see a lot more information than what you've seen before, but don't expect for there to be no room for you to grow and experiment and kind of play make-believe. Zamao asks, a friend of mine asks about the term aspects. Maybe curious about, is angry about. I'll have to address both, I guess. Is curious and or angry about the term aspects in terms of the characters. I don't see a problem with it as a term, but it did make me wonder if you had other names bouncing around and why you settled on aspect as the term for attributes. You know, every game really does a different title for attributes. Well, not every game. Some of them do, some of them don't. I mean, they can go by names like characteristics, stats, attributes. I've seen a few different ones, even beyond that. The reason I settled on aspects is because in the Malifaux skirmish game, there's traits. There's, the attributes and traits of the characters. And I felt that aspects was a good way to separate from that. And so we say, well, these are the different aspects of those traits and abilities and that sort of thing that kind of go together to make that happen. It was just another term. One, it's a smaller term, so it fits on the page better, and I get more words to a page. But also, it kind of just, it felt right to me as something that fit in the Malifaux world. If that causes a problem for you, if that makes you angry, feel free to refer to them as attributes. They're functionally the same. But aspects is just the term we went with. I don't really have a more deep answer than that. I just kind of, it felt right. It kind of distinguished it a little bit and put more words on a page. Let's scrolling down. Falk Calamerts asks, how many people have pledged enough to claim a secret reward? Well, that would be telling. I can tell you this. I can't tell you because I don't know the exact number. That's just not my wheelhouse here at the company. More than I expected, a lot more, and I think that actually will dovetail into into one of the other questions I noticed, which was about the canon campaign. So when we get there, I'll kind of answer your question maybe in a little more detail there, Falk. But actually, I don't know an exact number, but more than I expected, and I'm really excited about it. We're gonna do some fun stuff with those people. Scrolling down here, Ross Webwig asks, G'day again, Mac. I know you only handle the RPG side, but could you ask the designers of the multi-part miniature to do a rifle as well? Let's see, as well a bunch of pistols. I will. We're those are the sketches. I don't know what's going to go on to the final one. That's what we have so far. There may be some more stuff, but I will mention that we haven't done a rifle yet. I don't know what the kick-up is going to be. I don't know how far along the work on that is, but I'll mention it to him. I can do that for you. Let's not do too many of those guys, or else I'm going to be flooded with @Breachside chat questions that aren't really for us. I shouldn't probably answer that one, or else I'll get flooded. Again, Roos Webwig asks, do you have the ability to have a character start off with pets or companions, e.g. a drudge with his faithful pneumatic mule, or a drifter with his scruffy-looking mutt? Can you be an animal wrangler? Will there be a caricature of the weird miniature staff? Okay, that's the second question. So, first of all, the pets one. I haven't really gotten to the equipment / pet section. What you've mentioned is stuff that I've been bouncing around, and so I do not foresee it being a big deal that players will actually be able to get those things. So if you want to start with one, there's probably a good chance you can. I haven't really gotten into the nitty-gritty of how animal handling will work. Right now, it's husbandry is the name of the skill. But yeah, that's absolutely something. I mean, come on, we're trying to flesh out the world in a real way, and we've already got characters that have faithful companions. So that'll absolutely be something I look to add to the game, but I don't have any set details yet for you. I'm sorry. Second question is, will there be a character of the weird miniature staff who worked on the project as puppets in the hardcover Kickstarter edition, as in the style of the puppet versions of Lady Justice and stuff? I would love to see that. That'd be really cool. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't think so. I don't think we have that being worked on. And if it does, it'll go into the book in general because, well, look how pretty I am. How can I not show that puppet off? Let's keep scrolling down here. Tam Wilhams asks, two questions really. One, I'm a little confused as to the card distribution. Will players have a personal deck of control cards to cheat from as well as a communal deck? Yeah, that's basically how it works. Each player, during character creation, will assemble a 13-card twist deck of their own. These are standard cards that you get from the standard, either a fate deck or even a standard deck of cards. And there's some rules to how they're built. You pick a primary, dominant, primary, secondary, and descendant suit, something like that. I forget what the exact title is. And that basically sets up what your starting cards are, and you can make that better through gameplay. There are talents that will improve those cards and that sort of thing. High skills can do that, all kinds of stuff. So you can, through the game, improve that twist deck. At the beginning of every game session, you'll draw 3 cards from the twist deck to build your personal control hand, and you can use that throughout the game to cheat fate. I just finished the combat system, and low cards even have a really big benefit. If an enemy is attacking you, because you can cheat because only the players are flipping cards. When an enemy attacks them, a player character can actually cheat fate to lower the card number. Obviously, of course, if there's no negative or positives to it. So if it's just a straight flip or was already kind of edging towards low and they don't happen to get that low, they can make it happen. So there is a use for the low card in your hand. Hopefully that means that when you're drawing cards, if you see you've got 3 low cards in your hand, you're being like, well, I'll be wading into danger this game session. Also, you'll be able to draw new cards on triggers or as a Fate Master reward, that sort of thing. Beyond that, there's a communal deck that all of the players use to flip their cards. So whenever you do a challenge, you flip from the communal deck, and then you can cheat from your control hand, and that comes from your personal twist deck. That's simple. 2. Will we see more of the existing masters and named characters' personality through the role-playing book? P.S. Your beard is amazing. Why, thank you. Yes, their stories will, be fleshed out and continued and that sort of thing. But mostly that's going to happen in the skirmish game. The skirmish game is really going to focus on those masters. So anything that happens in the skirmish game can be referenced in our game, and we will flesh out characters like Lady Justice or the Judge, or, well, all of them really. The more pages I get, the more of them I'll flesh out, so that they can be introduced in the game as Fate Master characters, or NPCs, as you will. Sion Kearney asks, if a new faction or major characteristic is added to the skirmish, would another book be made for them in the RPG? Well, the goal is to do just the 8 books for the RPG. If we do something that large, I would introduce either some rules online so that they were just there for you to use, or I'd put them into a really fun Penny Dreadful, like a really cool Penny Dreadful, because I'm not afraid of putting some mechanics in the Penny Dreadfuls, and that'll be a good way for us to continue beyond the core 8 if we need to. But I don't foresee that being a big issue. I'm designing now with a lot of super secret fun future stuff understood, so don't worry. I got a good vision of the future, and there won't be a lot of stuff the role-playing game misses out on. Bjorn Bonten asks, "Hey Mac, talking about the Fated and the lines of fate, I was wondering how a character would get those lines. Is there a certain way that most of the Fated come across knowing their fate, or is that completely up to the Fate Master and players to make into a full story?" That's really up to the players and the Fate Master. It's done during character creation, so I expect the players will figure that out after they're done making their character. How does my character know? And there's a variety of ways. He could have had the fortune told to him that he believes. He could have had a lot of dreams. He could keep seeing the same graffiti on walls, all kinds of stuff. But at some point, he has come to understand that this is the truth, and he kind of is aware of his future. Some Fate Masters may wish to jumble that up on them or make them experience their fate in different order. And we get a lot of information in the Fate Master's book for advice for that sort of thing. Speaking of which, a lot of people have been asking about these lines and how they work. And so Zamao, before I started recording, asked me to create one for him. And I haven't told it to him yet, but I did flip on my table right here. I have flipped a character to figure out their fate. And I'm going to read you the fate they generated. I'm not going to tell you what the cards are. I'm not going to, I'm not going to go into all of the nitty-gritty on character creation there. But I thought you guys might get a kick out of finding out what fate your character does get at the end of character creation. So there's 8 or 9, maybe 10 steps to character creation. I forget the exact number. And you go through them, and every card you flip in what we call the Crossroads Tarot will tell another step of that fate, and every step, you flip that first card, that tells you your station, you make some decisions. You flip your second card, that tells you your physical aspects, and you make some decisions. You put out those point totals, that sort of thing. Every step of the way, there's decisions, at the end of which you simply read your fate and record it on your character sheet. So, here is the fate generated by Zamao's mythical character, who I in no way know anything about. When you cross the threshold, you will wait when you should act. You will break the noose. As upon your back you carry the brightest star into the shadows, you will be maimed. So there you go. That is the character's fate. I don't know about you, but that right there, it's like, what does all that mean? What is the threshold? When will I wait when I should act? All that kind of stuff. When will I break the noose? What does that actually mean? Is that purely metaphorical, or will I be being hung and it breaks? All kinds of options, all kinds of ways this could actually come out. What does it mean to be maimed? And so as the gameplay progresses, Zamao's character in this case will have to deal with those things. Speaking of character creation, I'm still trying to nail Eric's foot down to the floor to make a really cool making a character video. This time of year it's kind of tough, so I may have to cheat and make Justin do it as I look at him evilly.
I can do it.
Justin says he'll do it. So hopefully we'll have that video for you guys soonish. But don't worry, there's plenty of updates coming along. So I got a cool update for next week. I'm excited. I know you're excited. Don't lie. All right, next at... Here's another one from Mr. Falk. At Breach Set, how will you deal with stats of new releases for the Malifaux skirmish game? Are you going to include Through the Breach stats as a table at the end of the new Malifaux books, or something similar? Or are you going to cover them in dedicated Through the Breach publications? I'm asking because when I get a new Malifaux book, I might want the new hotness straight to my RPG campaign. Actually, if I get enough space in the core rule book, in the core Fate Masters book, I'll actually just give rules for making that conversion. It might be a little tricky to figure out what skills that character had, so it might be up to the Fate Master to decide yes or no, but you'll be able to kind of maybe convert backwards a little bit. Failing that, which may just not be necessary, the system may be clunkier than I'd like it to be, in which case I won't bother putting it in. Failing that, new releases, I'll simply include those characters in Penny Dreadfuls, or just put them online with the release of the new book, saying, hey, we kicked out book 6 or book 8 or book 32 or whatever it is, and be like, here's the stats for some of those major players. Here are the combat stats for the minions and stuff in there. Well, we're not going to ignore that stuff, but we would like it if we had a role-playing game that we put out that was really just, kind of that set collection. So we have to accept that there are challenges that come with that, and we will meet those challenges. We are not going to just kind of be like, nope, they never get those stats. I will find a clever way to meet that challenge. Eshman Took asks, Mac, is the performer type a social pursuit which won't be any good in combat situations due to the lag of combat skills, or is it more like a support kind of pursuit that just boosts the combat pursuits in the group? The academic pursuit seems to end up in the same area. I hope this is the right place. Yes, this is the right place to ask that question, Esben. I don't see why it can't be a combat pursuit. Same with the academic. I'm not really designing the game with combat pursuits and non-combat pursuits. A performer might have other things they do during combat, tricks, that sort of thing, but no one would argue that Colette, for instance, who might be, or is pretty clearly a performer, is no good in combat. She just has other ways in which she does cool combat. And you'll see that when I get to the magic system here in a little bit. But yeah, no, I just don't think that'll be an issue. I think that if you want it to be a combat character, it can be. If you don't want it to be a combat character, it might still have cool distractions, good support utility, that sort of thing. Same with the academic. An academic who knows history is certainly going to know a lot about battles that have been fought in war, and he might know those things. I actually consider a general kind of a half, somebody who was maybe a general over Earthside during one of the events we'll discuss more later, might come across to Malifaux, and he would certainly be an academic / guard or an academic / mercenary at that point. So I don't see an academic or a performer, for instance, not being capable in hand-to-hand. A gunfighter isn't designed to just do combat. He simply is really good with a pistol, and he has a certain outlook on life and a certain approach to combat that lends itself to quick resolution. That doesn't necessarily mean he's better at combat. He just maybe front loads his damage more, and he's a faster fighter. He goes earlier in the initiative and that sort of thing. So it's not about whether or not you can succeed in combat. It's about how you succeed in combat. I hope that's an answer. Breachside chat, what's with the box drawn on your whiteboard? I keep seeing it and wondering if it's pertinent to Through the Breach, or if you are just practicing drawing bones regularly, or that you don't clean your whiteboard. Next question. Breachside chat, I understand your rationale versus Dark Heresy, Black Crusade, corruption, infamy system, and how the system needs to fit the game and not the game to the system. However, I and my game group found that the system to be one of the highlights of everyone for our session, sitting down, going over who has done what, and rewarding, penalizing each player, and having a completely random yet still controllable event or result occur to the player. Was your no such system a hard no, or would we perhaps twist your arm a little? For example, I always thought, I can answer this. Really jump to the too long didn't read. Will a Mal cookie be enough to make you consider a Black Crusade-ish infamy corruption system? I don't have such thing as a hard no. I have well thought out, I hope, opinions and beliefs on the systems, but I wouldn't call anything a hard no. That being said, what you really want is a moment at the end of the game where everybody kind of goes over the game system, almost like in D&D where you hand out experience points, or in Black Crusade where you hand out experience points, that sort of thing. Although in Black Crusade, at the end you might do infamy, but I always did corruption and insanity right when it happened. I didn't make them wait. But we'll get to that. I guess there is the does that insanity stick kind of a thing. You're right, there is that kind of at the end moment. What am I thinking? Yeah, that's exactly how it works. there is an at the end of the game session moment in Through the Breach. The way skills work right now, the way you improve in your skills, is the Fate Master and you and the group discuss those skills that they think you learned the most. What you had the opportunity to learn a new trick or learn a new ability or kind of advance. And then the Fate Master eventually kind of arbitrates it and decides on 3, and then you pick which one you get a point total in. Where did you want to learn? In this way, the Fate Master has the ability to kind of control and make sure that every character doesn't hit 5 firearm skill right away, but that everyone is constantly advancing as the game moves forward. And that advancement makes sense to how the character advances. So there is certainly some after-action reports stuff and that sort of thing. So I think maybe that system will give you what you're hoping for, because there is a mechanical benefit. Your character does improve. But rather than like in the 40K roleplay system where those end of events are almost always bad, except for Black Crusade, which has infamy. In this case, they're always good. So it's rewarding players rather than for the events of the game, rather than punishing them for events of the game, which punishing isn't bad. It really, really fits Dark Heresy, but it doesn't fit. It does fit Malifaux, but Malifaux's a bloodier game world. So there's not as much internal corruption unless you're doing that whole transition into a Neverborn kind of story arc. So it's not a hard no. But I think what you're wanting is, the Too Long Didn't Read of Mine is, I think what you're looking for is actually in the game. Scrolling down on my ats. Scrolling down at the ats. Breachside chat, are we getting book 5 of Malifaux in addition to Through the Breach next year? I can't really comment on that. That would be telling you stuff that other people are working on, and that wouldn't be fair. They get to do that stuff. Scrolling down at my ats. This Breachside question is more about the David Castro asks, I love Weird and Malifaux Mythos and Fluff, but I need you guys to do something special, a new goal, something special to encourage higher pledges. Santana at 225. Well, okay, I guess I'll do that this morning. In the future, though, I really can't answer questions on the Kickstarter. It's not my wheelhouse here at the company. So you got lucky on that one. I was able to answer it, but just as a heads up, that's not going to meet with success in the future. At Breachside Chat, you touched on the general and specific AP systems beyond the obvious walk, strike, etc. Will there be a defined list of available actions, perhaps based on character skills? How open is the AP system to creative thinking? Role players are great at coming up with off-the-wall things they want to do, and as an aspiring Fate Master, I try to encourage that. It's very open. One of the skills I put in is the number use skill. Also perform stunts and that sort of thing. So you should have a lot of very, very, very flexible options. This is a very distracting day in the office. You should have a lot of very, very flexible options to get creative during combat. It is not like the skirmish game where things are kind of set in stone. This is very much a storytelling game between the player and the players and the Fate Master as a group creating a story. So you will have all that flexibility. Scrolling down. Hit next. I think I've already answered this one, so I think we're good. I'm pretty sure that was all of them. I hope I didn't miss anybody. There was one I said I'd get to a little bit later, and I feel bad because I think I may have not gotten to that question. I think it was about magic. I am a terrible podcaster today, or webcaster today. We've got the office going nuts. I'm distracted. But let's get to the fun part, the thing you guys, I'm sure, are all extremely excited to get to, the magic system. So how does the magic system work, and how does it let me be super creative on my character? Well, let me pop open. I had it open here, and like a doofus, just now I literally closed it because I was looking for it. I am going to open the chapter it's in so I can give you some of the exact terms that I am working with. Won't that be fun? If I can get my brain to work here. Where's my open recent? There it is. Magic. Okay, so magic is broken down when it's used into a variety of options. And that's going to be a pretty big portion of the player's handbook. For instance, the first thing you choose is the magia. I've gone with faux Latin on these, so you pick a magia, which is basically the effect. Do I want to attack somebody? Do I want to be able to talk to a spirit? Do I want to cloak myself in illusion, or animate a doll, or do any variety of things? I pick a magia. Every magia has a few requirements, so much of the magic skills, training in certain magic skills, that sort of thing, and it has a default CC. CCs in this game are pretty straightforward. They're a number you must beat in addition to any other totals you have to beat when you make a challenge. So, because things are kind of set in stone, it's pretty straightforward. So there's still only one flip for magic, but that flip can be larger than a normal target number, or it could be less, in which case it's now the new higher target number. So you kind of want to guess your target number to the enemy's defenses to try and maximize your damage without maximizing your CC. It's kind of fun that way. So you pick the magia. In this case, let's say it's elemental trauma, which causes somebody to suddenly be surrounded by an element of your choosing. The element also requires that you take an immuto. Immuto are our modifiers. We'll get to those in a second. That chooses the element. So let's say you want to create a spell that makes someone combust into flames. And so that's going to be your deal. You make people light on fire. So you choose elemental trauma, so you can just carry them and make them ignite. And you describe how your character makes that work. Perhaps he's got a seething rage inside of him that he taps into. Maybe he's met a demon along the way, or a Neverborn along the way who shared a secret with him. That's kind of story-driven and should be completely based on the character. So we start with that nugget. My character has a seething rage inside of him, and over time he's learned to harness that rage and cause other people to explode and combust. That rage, of course, all taps back to when he failed to fight one of his fates, and he saw one of his friends die, and so now he's just angry all the time, and that's how he's kind of started to gain this new power that no one else has. So he takes elemental trauma, which has some defaults like damage and what the target resists it with, and that sort of thing. After that, he has to choose a abstantia, which is effectively the range, which could be a variety of things. He chooses range strike. He's going to choose 10 meters, which sets another CC. It kind of adds into the CC of the original one. Those numbers are extremely flexible right now because we're just building the system. So he goes, I can hit anything that's within 10 meters of my character. He can make anything within 10 meters light on fire. One of the other abstantias, for instance, is arcane link. As long as you have an arcane link to it, like Zoraida, you can make it happen anywhere, and that kind of thing. There's a bunch of options there. Sometimes it's just completely with invisible, or that is visible to you. Bunch of options there. You then choose a genus. The genus is what the spell can work on. He decides that it only works on living and undead. So he chooses animate, which means only things that can walk and move about. He can't make inanimate objects light on fire. Something about the spell, he doesn't light up buildings and that sort of thing. While they may catch fire because a flaming person walks into them, he can't look at a door and light it on fire. He lights people and zombies and Neverborn and stuff like that on fire. So he chooses the genus that it will work on. There is an all or an any genus, but it's extremely expensive. So he needs to be very careful about how he builds this power. And then he chooses the immuto, which are a variety of different things that just alter the spell, and that's where there are more things than anywhere else. He chooses flame, so now when he does this elemental damage, it's always fire. As well, he chooses the altered damage immuto, raising the CC of the spell, but also raising the amount of damage it will do. In this case, if he wants to raise it up, it's 2 to the CC to raise it by 1 damage. It starts at 1, 2, 3. He wants it to be 3, 4, 5, so he spends 4 points, adding plus to the damage at all times. According to the math, that brings the CC to 13. It's a pretty difficult spell for him to get off, and considering that the character is just now learning their sorcery, it might be pretty difficult. Might be pretty tough. There are other skills like physical strike where you're actually attacking with a weapon that actually use weapon skill instead of spell skills. So there are options for characters that are non-magical to kind of infuse themselves with magic. So that's the basics of building yourself a power. You have a lot of options, a lot of things you put in there to mutate it and change it, and I'll be adding more of those in subsequent books. For instance, Under Quarantine, we'll have a few more tricks for undead and that sort of thing. So everyone, even non-sorcerers, can build powers. So even if you're not a dabbler, even if you're not a reser or an arcanist, you can build yourself powers. For instance, Lady Justice power to just hurt undead is on here. You could recreate that exact power by making those choices. Your CC might be a little higher. She probably has a hidden talent that's not shown on the card that makes her CC for that power lower, or maybe not. I haven't done the math here exactly yet. But that's the idea, is if it's a power in Malifaux that would be counted as a magical power, you will be able to create it for your character, even those who aren't arcanists. Where arcanists and others, magic users, come into their own, is with something called tomes. Tomes are magical books that contain sets of magia, abstantia, genus, and immuto. So, as an example that I've been bouncing around, you might get a treatise written by Seamus on summoning undead. And because you have access to that treatise, that tome, that kind of book of notes and that sort of thing, which it may not be where he sat down and wrote a bunch of stuff. It could just be a series of love notes he drunkenly wrote one night that really give you insight into how these things work. When you have access to that, when you have that basically equipped, when that's the kind of thing your character is carrying, he has access to all of those and can mix and match them on the fly. So that Seamus's treatise on the love of undead might be the genus summon, animate, and heal, right? So he can heal, that sort of thing, or the magia for that. But the only genus in the book is undead. So when combined with those things, because you have to combine with what's in the book, you can only affect undead. So you might be able to damage undead, heal undead, that sort of thing. Then you have only a certain number of immuto from that tome that you can mix and match in there, and you have only a certain number of ranges. Maybe he doesn't really, he doesn't make arcane links. He doesn't really do long range attacks. He has all those things kind of built in as part of that book. So when you get that tome, you have the option to you just unlock the, oh cool, I'm a necromancer. And every dabbler will start with a tome of their choice. So there's going to be as many tomes as I can fit in the book. There'll be new ones coming out, and there might even be rules in a later book, which might be shown today, that would allow you as a player to even write your own tomes for use out in the field. So that's a little gist of the magic system. I'm going to write something up next week to go out in one of my updates. So look for more on that pretty soon. That, gentlemen, is everything for my pre-answered questions. Here I thought it was going to be a half-hour day, and we're already at 42 minutes. So let me find my Ustream social stream here, and I'm going to restore the social stream. So, boom. Give it a second here for it to catch up with everybody so that I can actually see what you're going to ask. And let's start asking some questions. Hopefully you guys like all that, the fates and that sort of thing. It's all filling in now. I'm being treated to all of the chat people have said. So I guess I should sing The Girl from Ipanema, right? Because we're in an elevator here. The question I missed was about the Gen Con Canon campaign. Thank you. Someone in there said that they were nervous about the Gen Con campaign. I can't remember where that question was, and I'm sorry I missed it. But there was that question. So let me answer that. Thanks, Jamel. The Gen Con campaign is going to be a lot of fun, but don't worry, those of you who aren't involved in it. It's not going to be something where they shut the breach forever. This is one of those things where, I don't know if you guys know, but whenever you design a role-playing game, one of the hidden perks, the secret, not-so-secret perks, is getting to sneak stuff from your personal gaming group into canon. You might reference an Inquisitor your characters made, when I was doing Dark Heresy, or I might reference doing Through the Breach, I might reference some of the characters in the Internal Office campaign and that sort of thing. The goal here is to give every player out there at least the opportunity. Now, there are some problems, right? Some logistical issues. I have to be there so that I know what happened and can take notes. That's why we chose Gen Con. Obviously, you can't do it all the time, so we're going to do a little raffle. We're going to let people in. Those who donate enough, to get one of the perks. That's one of the perks they can choose. One of the hidden bonuses. So, yeah, we hope that it'll be a lot of fun, but it's not going to rebuild the Malifaux skirmish game on you. Instead, it'll be one of those things where players can point to something in a book, like an event we describe, or even a town we talk about, and go, "Hey, my character is the mayor of that town. That happened during our canon campaign." Hey, look, these are my characters that they're referencing in this area of town, and the events he's describing were something that happened in the canon campaign. This is this, example, and I don't know if this is what the canon campaign is. Actually, I'm pretty sure it's not, so I'll use this as my example. Let's pretend that part of the quarantine zone gets open to expansion. It wouldn't be a very large portion. It probably wouldn't even change the map, but now it's the canon campaign characters are all vying for that area. Some of them might lose, and they would end up being the villains of the story. They're the guys who thwarted the guys who eventually got that area. And then when I describe that area in a book, their characters will have kind of been instrumental in that, and we'll describe them a little bit and talk about them, and really they'll be able to point to that to their friends and be like, "That was my character. That happened at Gen Con." And it'll be this really cool reward for the fans, and I want to make sure that as many people as possible kind of get an opportunity to have have their own bingo ball in the spinner, and get a chance at being in that. So it's not perfect, but we're hoping we can have some fun, and that I don't hoard that perk of game design all to myself. So to answer that other one, a lot of people have signed up at the higher secret pledge levels to get into the canon campaign. So I'll be working hard to make sure they're well rewarded for their faith in the Through the Breach role-playing game. Philip Johnson asks, question on money. Will players be counting out their coins for bullets, booze, etc., or is it a more abstract system? You know what was really, really big back then? Credit. Just saying, you can just run a line at the general store for a lot of people. I will probably be getting into a very, very non-abstract system, but I don't expect characters will have a hard time affording bullets, for instance, unless that is a big deal in the campaign, like the characters are completely destitute. That would be a Fate Master moment, right, where the characters are very, very destitute. I tend to, in games, to just kind of put in a system where I go, if it's out for a night of boozing, or I'm going to buy, bullets, to replenish what I used in the last adventure. I'm going to build in some rules, I think, that will prevent players from having to count every piece of guild script they have. But when it comes to buying a horse, yeah, it's a big expenditure. That's a good question, Philip, that we haven't really gotten to. It's a mechanic that needs to be finished before we go to print. And frankly, giving set prices for a lot of the stuff in Malifaux is a great way to flesh out the game world. But a more abstract system can be much faster. So, and it would give me another skill to do so characters could get richer. Both of them have some very, very serious merits. Yeah, you guys are literally watching me think it over now. Basically, when we get to the preview forums, that's one of the things I'll be discussing with everyone, just so that I can help get my head around it and really make the right decision for this role-playing game. Both have merits and flaws, and we as a group will hopefully be able to investigate them and make the right decision for all of us. Jean-Sebastian Matt asks, will every character be able to cast a spell of some sort that won't be able to touch magic spell? Yeah. So even if you aren't a magician or a spellcaster, you will have access to special powers. Some of you will even be able to, example that fireball character I mentioned earlier, the Fate Master even has the option to rule that they don't use magic to do it, that they use Maybe that guy uses tenacity, which is kind of the willpower, and something else like maybe he just uses his tenacity and just makes it happen. So it's harder for him to do, but he doesn't require having training in magic. Basically, whenever you complete a game session, everybody gets what I'm calling right now a PP. It's basically an experience point. I'm calling it a progress point or a pursuit point. Normally, this point is used to move yourself one step down in pursuit. You can spend that point instead, however, to buy yourself a new power. Sometimes it'll cost more than 1 point, so you might have to save up a game session or two. But yeah, new powers will kind of come as your character advances, and they'll do that instead of advancing down one of the lines because, that's just how that works. There will be the Dabbler, for instance, will have some moving down the line kind of. I move down my pursuit line. I can now master a spell that's created from a tome I possess. So he will have the option to move down his pursuit as well as learning spells by rote. But for everyone else, it'll be like, I want this spell. Boom. I'm not moving down the line. I'm instead doing this thing. So don't worry. It's got some fleshing out to do. The magic system is pretty rough right now. Over the holidays, I'm going to be sitting down and writing the full chapter. So it'll be ready for testing when I get back. So I hope to be able to do some serious internal testing very soon. Netzettel asks, as far as resources go, players are going to need to keep track of how many bullets they've fired to reload. Yeah, I would imagine. That's kind of a thing in these games. If your Fate Master doesn't want to make you to worry about it, then you won't. And if you don't like counting them and your Fate Master's making you count them, may I suggest a magical gun that fills itself with bullets? Sartfast says, we know some about the pursuits. How can we change them? And how easy will it be to be a hybrid? You won't really be able to change them. The idea is that every character is a hybrid. It's my intention that someone who focuses on one pursuit at the exclusion of all others is probably the exception to the norm. You'll be able to kind of at the beginning of every game session choose the pursuit that makes sense for what your kind of character is doing or what the theme of the story this session is. Fate Master will help give you some advice on that. He'll be like, hey, you guys are going out into the wilderness, you're going out to settle this new town. Some of you may want to take guard, if it's appropriate to your character, what your job is on this adventure. Some of you might take pioneer, some of you might take gunfighter, some of you might take all kinds of other stuff. But if you want to, for instance, be a gunslinger spellcaster, being a gunfighter / dabbler is totally easy to do. That is the default assumption, is that you will be mixing and matching the ones that make sense to the character. The pursuit doesn't define the character. The character defines what pursuits he's taking, and the adventure defines what pursuits he's on at the moment. So it's all very, very fluid and defined by the characters. Zamao asks, on combat, how will weak, moderate, severe damage work for NPCs? I'm glad you asked, because I'm literally right over here in InDesign looking at that, because that's what I did today. That was me last night. I was here till 10 o'clock last night working on that stuff. It's very straightforward. There are 3 levels of NPC, minion, henchman, and master. That number sets what kind of number they add to their flip. Since the Fate Master doesn't flip things, the level of the minion automatically adds a number, which helps make the target number. So it's as if you need to quit talking. I'm recording. I'm being so unprofessional today.
Saying that is way more distracting.
Is it way more distracting? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
FYI.
That's FYI. It's the Christmas holiday. Can you tell I'm a little giddy? I'm getting ready for vacation, which I'll be working through. So because a NPC doesn't flip a card, they just kind of set a target number. Different NPCs will add a different number. Right now, that number is 5 for a minion, 7 for a henchman, 9 for a master. So you add in the stats, you add in that 5, that's the target number the player has to flip to beat. Think of that number as that of the flip. So when an NPC takes damage, it's done the exact same way. Players flip damage, you have a damage code just like in the skirmish game, 135, 246, whatever makes sense for the weapon, whatever the weapon's damage code is or the attack's damage code is. And after you've hit them, you get bonuses. Again, you get a minus if you get no what we call margins of success, which is ranks of 5. Exact same way it works in the skirmish game. You need 2 or more to get a bonus. You get more than 5 above the target number, and you'll get a straight hit. Less than 5 above the target number, and you get a minus. I don't have a double minus for 0. I just have it be less than 5. It makes it work smoother in the miniatures game, or in the role-playing game. Miniatures game, that becomes important, but not so much in the role-playing game. So, player flips a damage card. I'll grab a card right here. Let's say he flipped this 3 of crows, so obviously that's a weak. He does his weak damage. Once every character has a wounds level. When you have suffered more damage than your wounds, you start taking crits. Crits are separated into weak, moderate, and severe. And what you do is you flip a card for the crit, totally separate card, in this case a 4 of rams. The suit sets the location you took the damage, if that's important. Sometimes it's not. And the number, you then add your total amount of damage. So let's say you've got a wounds threshold of 6 and you've taken 8 damage, and this is a moderate. Let's scroll over here. Where'd it go? And you've taken a moderate crit. So you've got a wounds. I'll just go through the math again because I've already forgotten those numbers I just said. So you got the 4, and then you're going to add the amount of wounds you've taken. In this case, let's say 8. So now you're at a 12 amount of damage you've taken. And then you subtract your wounds. Let's say it's a 6, so now you're down to a 6. So the further you are over the threshold, the worse it's going to be. So a 6 on the moderate chart, the character's been hit in a nerve cluster. So while he's not totally hosed, the afflicted character gains paralyzed until dramatic time ends. He is paralyzed for the rest of the combat. Someone's going to need to come remove that from his negative effects, that sort of thing. So he's effectively, that's a pretty bad one. He's kind of out of the combat, but the minute the combat's over, he can just start healing the damage he's taken. You will be able to cheat both the damage you take as a player when the NPC deals damage to you, as long as the NPC doesn't have any pluses to the damage, and as long as you are blank or pluses, you can cheat damage that you're dealing. If you've got negatives or the NPC has positives, you can't cheat the damage. That means that having these 2 cards in your hand, a 3 and a 4, might look like it sucks when you draw them at the beginning of the game, but that's just NPC damage. You can cheat lower. So yeah, that's basically how it works. A character doesn't actually start to risk death until they get up above 13 on the severe chart. The reason I did that is if you flip a red joker, you take severe damage and you flip a severe crit. Now, if you are still at full health, like you've got 6 wounds and they just did 3 points of damage because that's their severe, and you flip it, that's going to be a -3 to the card. And at a 1, you'll actually generate effects on the lower one, and it'll drop down. So when you take crits before you kind of hit your wounds maximum, you won't be just dying. I don't want any player character to get one-shotted. That's anticlimactic. Even then, the fun part about this system is I don't have one-shots. Well, I do. I do have one one-shot. For the most part, though, they're terrible things that add to the story. A great example is 17 is internal bleeding. The character has taken damage in a location and is bleeding internally. He's not dead, but he's going to need assistance. And basically, if the character takes any other action besides pass, he's going to take extra damage, which will cause moderate crit. So the further along he gets, the more he pushes himself with that internal bleeding, the more he risks actually dying. But he's not actually dying. An 18, which is pretty high, it stops at 20 plus, and 18 is addlepated. He's really stunned really badly. He probably took a big blow to the head. He might have a concussion. All his mental attributes are dropped by 2 until all the damage he's sustained is healed. At the end, when he actually heals all that damage, he has to pass a toughness test. If he fails, he loses a mental aspect permanently. Don't take a big blow to the head. That kind of sucks in Malifaux. But again, that's at like an 18. You have to have like 5 over the threshold and flip a 13 to make that happen. The highest level one is obliterated. You just lost that body part. Better hope it's not your head. And you'll be gushing blood from there. So all kinds of stuff happen. I don't really have a way in which the character just auto dies unless a critical thing like your head or chest is obliterated or amputated by the attack. So there are some chances for a character to die immediately, but for the most part, I want a character death to be a story moment. Many of them, I am also going to write in a rule that characters don't typically die until the end of combat. So let's say combat does go more than 2 or 3 minutes and your character has died from internal bleeding. He's still going to get that moment at the end of it to say a few words to his party, to taunt the enemy, to have his moment of his death moment. I'm a firm believer that player characters should own their death scenes. Zamao asks, so the players flip the NPC damage? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Players do all the card flipping. They also should be referring to most of the charts, too. I want the Fate Master to really be worried about telling a cool story. Someone asked this one, and I'll answer Zamao's question and this question that no one asked here, and then that'll be the end of it for the day. Someone asked the other day how a Fate Master would go about choosing something random, right? Well, I need let's say a guy is climbing a cliff and there's a bad guy after him climbing the cliff. How do I resolve whether or not that enemy fails? Well, that's really a race. That's a race between the player and the fated character. So the fated character would set the target number and the player would make the flip, and that would determine whether or not the NPC gets closer or not. So yes, there are random elements, right? The Fate Master may even declare that a red joker on the part of the player character of the fated is a critical failure on the part of the enemy. It doesn't even have to be I got a critical success. I'm climbing this cliff and I got a red joker. It's not necessarily that he climbed that much faster and escaped the guy. Maybe the guy chasing him slips and falls to his death. That's totally up to the Fate Master. So that swing goes both ways. And we give a lot of advice for that in the Fate Master's book. So Zamao's last question. On character creation, what is considered human average and what is the human min-max of aspects? Great question. 0 is the human average. The absolute minimum a character can go is -5. If they have more than a -5 in an attribute, I kind of have them set at they're probably dead and or a vegetable, something really bad. It's really rare that characters will be taking damage in that way. Actually don't have it built in that characters will ever take damage directly to their attribute except as a severe crit. And typically that's going to be losing an arm or that sort of thing, or really taking a bad head wound. Was there more to that question? Maximum. Human maximum would be +5. During character creation, that number is more of the maximum is a +4. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, that's it for today's webcast. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for joining me with the Breachside chat. As you can tell, it's crazy here, and I do apologize for the terribleness of this Ustream. Thank you again all for joining us, and I hope to see you next week, and look for my updates all next week except for Christmas Day. I'm taking the whole day off. Thanks for coming.